Hello, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University. I wanted to talk a bit about this PLACES data, and this actually has data set that are health outcomes, prevention, health behaviors, health status, etc. And I first came across this actually in one of the maps within the search that you make. And PLACES data is actually a source of a lot of different types of data sets. Now, let's look at what PLACES stands for. So PLACES stands for, it's a collaboration actually between CDC, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and the CDC Foundation. So PLACES provides health data for small areas across the country, which is why this makes it such a wonderful sort of data set. So let's take a look here and go to the previous page that we were looking at. And here's the data portal. And you can look in the portal, and there's a lot of different components to this. So their logo is local data for better health. And so that is kind of what that stands for. It's not an actual acronym. It's only more of a kind of understanding of what is going on in different places. So now that you've kind of been introduced to what PLACES data is, take a look at this data set and see what you see. And typically the darker orange places are if it's, I believe it's somewhat red, and the south you'll see a lot more high blood pressure than the north. Usually called the stroke belt. So high blood pressure is one of the risk factors for that. Let's take a look at asthma, and asthma is actually just as bad, but different areas. So you have some high preponderance of asthma, and so it says that estimates are not available for areas that are shaded gray. So the model-based estimates were generated using BRFSS 2020 or 2019. And then it says census from 2010 population counts were taken into account. So this is from this National Center for Chronic Diseases and Health Promotion, which is a division of population health and with the CDC. Anyway, so this is a combination of so many different aspects of this. And so darker purple is usually considered high preponderance of asthma. I also made a separate separate lecture on asthma. Most of these conditions, I'll add this as well, most of these conditions are not something that varies as much, and it doesn't have as much stigma as asthma and arthritis as well. So let's look at arthritis here. I'm going to take a moment to load the maps. So high blood pressure, again, a lot of it in the south. Cancer is, let's take a look, and cancer you'll see pretty much all over the country. Some parts of Alaska is not actually known. Lower percentage of cancer in Alaska. Other than that, and you could actually increase the granularity if you choose to do so. What I'm doing is I'm showing a national level view, sort of the area. It's like almost like a weather map if you think about it. Some of the darker areas are higher preponderance of cancer. This may be due to the local area, maybe dump sites, things like that. High cholesterol should follow suit. as we saw in some of the other maps like high blood pressure. So high cholesterol is also in the same place, the South, including Texas, and then gets into Virginia and Pennsylvania as well. So after cancer and high cholesterol, we're going to jump ship to kidney disease. And kidney disease is pretty much higher in many places, including Alaska and much of the South. There's lower preponderance in Chicago, perhaps, and some of the Midwest states and cities. So going from kidney disease, I can go into COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Definitely in the South, there's a huge preponderance of that. But also the Northeast goes much higher than kidney disease. And that's the Appalachia region. How does heart disease look? A lot in the South, but again goes into the Northeast. How's it in the Midwest? There's some paucity of data missing here. Yet in the Midwest also there's a pretty high preponderance on the left as well. Let's take a look at diabetes. I've almost gotten through all of them. Diabetes, very, very much distinct from the South. Then we can look at depression. And depression, seems like there's a lot of missing data. Interpolation actually is one of the techniques that can be created from this, and I've actually talked much about this. And even in the lecture, interpolation has been a key issue that we take a look at. And then just looking at the South and Appalachia, all of these areas, and then going into Maine, these are depression is pretty heavily populated here. Obesity then. So this is just looking at health outcomes, by the way, all the way to Texas. And, this is much closer to take a look. And a lot of these areas, a lot of the counties in Alabama, Georgia, all the way to Texas, there's quite a few areas. Doesn't go all the way to Pennsylvania, so obesity is not as prevalent there. And then looking, of course, Texas has, especially in the southern parts, has a bigger sort of percentage of obesity. Let's look at the actual stroke belt and see if it has expanded since 20 years ago when I was looking at this. The telestroke program was actually started by Dr. Hess in Augusta, Georgia, and he talked about telestroke being a very important. He and I talked about how important telestroke was when in its inception. The idea was to be able to go into the rural areas and give them telemedicine, so that the scope of one or two stroke doctors can actually physicians can actually look for stroke and then diagnose it. Finally, all teeth lost is something of a aspect that's important, and this is something in the Appalachia, southern Georgia, and all of the other places. So let's just go over this in a closer manner. So I just wanted to quickly go through this. And as you can see in the Appalachia region, right here is a higher preponderance of arthritis, asthma, and I'm going to quickly zoom in. Appalachia region is the worst amount, and then California, Arizona area. So asthma is very common, and pollution is a big part of that, but also poverty and different things that takes place. and high blood pressure again in the Appalachia region, but also southern region as well. Cancer, just quickly, let's take a look, and when you zoom in, a higher granularity, you see that Virginia and the Appalachia region is suffered, but also Pennsylvania goes into, if you look beyond, I'm going to move this for a second, and you see in Maine also there's a higher preponderance. Midwest states as well for cancer, and then near California, Northern California. High cholesterol wouldn't surprise you, again, the southern states and extending out to the Appalachia region. But there is some Maine in the Maine area. And again, this is something that is almost occurring in the Maine area, but Appalachia region, Alabama, and going out into the Midwest states. Most of the Midwest states are not as high a preponderance in this than others for high blood pressure. Cancer is kind of in the Midwest more, Virginia more, but goes all the way up to the Northeast. High cholesterol, again, southern portion, also going into Maine. Kidney disease, pretty much sprinkled all over, but we can see Virginia and Pennsylvania, kind of southern, around Pittsburgh. There's kidney disease more so than other places. Again, southern, we're looking at Texas, some, and then New Mexico more, and Arizona. And then if we look at Nevada and California, there's a lot more kidney disease. Again, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, Appalachia, but also southern Alabama, Georgia, going into Texas, all the way into Arizona, Nevada, and then northern part of California. I don't want to belabor the point here, but the point is that these are spatially distributed, all these outcomes. So heart disease, again, southern portion, and northern California. You have the Appalachia, southern portion, a lot of southern, New Mexico, Arizona. Midwest, not too much except for one portion, and then the northern California area. So just a couple more. Depression is through the Appalachia and southern states. Obesity is Appalachia region, and then the southern states again. And I talked about the two of the rest, and hopefully you understand the geospatial distribution of many of these outcomes. And I would also encourage you to go to prevention, and prevention goes into annual checkup, health insurance, dental visit, blood pressure medication, all of these things. And then risky behaviors are important, health status, and then you have a help here, so that if you have questions on something, then you can go into it. But sometimes it goes into a different link, so if it does, then you might want to change that with the health status, mental health, and general health. These are all the distributions that are available. Take advantage of them. These are all put together by Esri, NOAA, FAO, USGS. So these are all maps that when you create, that is your creative addition to what is being used. So the Places dataset, use it, take advantage of it. The geospatial analysis is extremely important. Thank you for listening.